Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Perek Revi, the fourth chapter in the Rambam's Hilchos Yesodei, the Torah, the laws of the foundations of the Torah in the Sefer Mada, the book of knowledge. This first book, which we conclude in this Perek, the discussion of the Pardes, which we were discussing in these previous three, and now in this fourth Perek. Also, we start off with discussing the combination of the Yesodis, of the foundations of matter, and Tzura of the form. As Rambam gets halacha Aleph regarding the manner of the four foundations of the world, which we discussed in the previous parak. Arba guf malolu shehem. Regarding these four bodies, which they are Eish, fire, Ruach, and wind, Umayim, and or air, Mayim, and water, Ve'eretz, and earth. Him Yesodis kol hanevram lamatim nerakia. That's the foundation of all the creations that are under the sky. Chol shiyeh, and whatever it's going to be, mi adam, behema, from man and from beast, va'if, and bird, v'demis, and crawly creatures, v'dog and fish, v'tzemach and plants, and matechas and metals, v'avan tovim and precious stones, and margolius and pearls, ushar and bin, and all other stones that are used in construction, the baharim and mountains, v'gushi offer and clumps of earth, hakoil, all of it, golmam mechubar ma'bar yisod salal. Their matter is a combination of these four foundations. Nimsu comes out, kalagufim shalamatim nebekia, all bodies that are beneath the sky, chutz me'arba yisodis ha'elu, except for these four primary foundations themselves, mechubarim megoyim metzura, are connected from matter and form. But goyim shalahem, and their matter is mechubar me'arba yisodis ha'elu, is a combination of these four foundations. Avakol echad me'arba ha'yisodis. Now, however, every one of these four foundations, that only has a form and a fig and the matter, but everything else is a combination of these four. Halacha base. Now, derech ha'esh v'ruach. Now, the mannerism of fire and wind, liyas mahalocha mimata, they go from lower down, mitabo ha'aretz, from the center of the earth, lamala, ascending upwards, klapir towards the sky. Whereas v'derech hamayim ba'aretz, regarding the other two of water and earth, liyas mahalocha mitachas l'kir lamata, their pattern is that they go from beneath the sky downwards, descending ad la'emtza, down to the middle. Because the reason why I call it the middle, she'emtza rikia, because the middle of the sky, hu amata she'en lamata mena, is lower, that there's nothing lower than that. Where when you have the ball of the earth, which is in the middle of the sphere of the sky, that's the middle, that there's nothing that goes beneath that. That's where it hits the ground. Now, ve'en helucham, now, however, their patterns, which you just described, there are two that go up, two that go down, lo bedaitim, it's not with their consciousness, not with their will. It's the custom that's been established in them, but teva shenit b'hem, and there's a nature that's been ingrained in them. Now, teva ha'esh, the nature of fire, is cham v'yavish, is warm and dry. V'ukam mekulim, it's the lightest of all the four foundations. V'ruach, and regarding wind, is cham balach, is warm but moist. V'hamayim, regarding water, is karim balachim, is cold and moist. V'aretz, and earth, yevesh v'kara, is dry and cold. It's the heaviest from them all. So there's basically two that the different mixtures in those four foundations, which is regarding dry and wet, and cold and warm. Now, v'hamayim kal mimenu. Now, water is lighter than earth. Therefore, you find that the water is on top of the earth. Now, wind is lighter than water. Therefore, it hovers on the surface of the water. And fire is lighter than wind. Now, since, as we said, they're the foundations of all bodies that are beneath the sky, you must say every single body, from man and from animal, and wild animal, and bird, dog, and fish, and plant, and metals and stones. The matter is a combination of fire, wind, water, and earth. Now, the four of them get mixed together, but every single body is different from when it gets mixed together, until it comes out that what's connected from all the four in a is not similar to any one of them when it's by itself. So although the four are independent, but when you mix it, it looks different than any one of the four. Now, but you don't have any one of those that are mixed from them, even one part, which is pure fire on its own, or water on its own, or earth on its own, or wind on its own. Rather, that whole body is totally changed. It becomes like a totally different body, because by mixing the different foundations together, you don't even recognize any of the essential of the original of the compound. Now, every single body that's connected from these four, Yimatziba, you'll find kor v'chaim, cold and warm, lach v'yevish, and moist and dry, ke'echad, as one. Now, but there are certain bodies that has a very strong part of the foundation of fire, like those which are living creatures that have a soul, and therefore you're going to find by mammals, you're going to find by those who are living creatures have a higher temperature of warmth. Now you have certain bodies that are stronger from the foundation of earth, like stone, like minerals. But it's going to be very dry. Then you have certain bodies that are very strong in the foundation of water. Therefore you're going to find by them they're more moist. And this same way you're going to find guf cham yosim guf amach cham. You'll find some bodies that are more warm than other warm bodies. And you'll find beguf yavish yosim guf acha yavish. You'll find a dry body that's more than a different dry body. Then you'll find certain bodies that they're only cold. Then you find other bodies that are purely moist. Then you'll find certain bodies that have cold and dry in that same body. You'll find cold and moist together as one. You'll find equally that it's warm and dry. You'll find that it's warm and moist together as one. According to the abundance of the foundation, which is the primary of the mixture, you'll find the actions of that foundation and its nature in the body of what it's mixed into. Halacha Gimel regarding the changing of the Yesodei of the foundations. Whatever is connected from these four foundations, from them it ends up separating at the end. Now, certain things that decompose, that break down after a few days. There are those that only after many years. Now, but whatever is connected from these four foundations, it's not possible, it's not going to get breakdown and separated. Even gold and ruby, which are very strong matter, it's not possible, it's not going to get lost and come down to its foundations, which is v'yash miktas leish. Some of it will go back to fire. Miktas l'mayim, some will go back to water. Miktas l'ruach, some of it will go back to wind. Miktas l'earth, some will go back to earth, because everything is made up of these four foundations. Now halacha dalad since you tell me that everything that is deficient, which is matter, will break down to these foundations. So why say by man a pasuk in Bereshit will offer tashav that the earth is going to go back? Because most of the structure is from earth. But everything breaks down. Now, however, not everything that is deficient, that when it becomes deficient, it's not like right away it's going to go back to the four foundations. Rather, it gets a little bit deficient, and it goes back to something else. And something else to something else, which a tzura changes and it puts on another tzura. But as we know, that energy doesn't get lost. And the end of it, it goes back to the foundations. It comes out that all the things keep on going in a circle. That's the ecosystem, that everything keeps on changing and going from one to another, but it doesn't automatically go straight right back to fire, to wind, to water, to earth. Halacha hey. Now, these four foundations, they constantly change from one to the other one. Every day, every moment. Now, miktsasam loy kol gufam. Now, that's part of the foundation, not the whole body. Ketzad, how so? So Rambam illustrates. Miktsas ha'aretz hakreven minamayim mishtanas. Some of the earth that's near the water, let's say by the beach, it changes. Umispeideres v'nasas mayim. It actually crumbles and actually turns into water. So to some of the water that's near the wind, it changes. It actually evaporates. It becomes wind. So to wind. The little bit of it that's near fire, it changes. And it actually becomes into fire. To fire. The part of the fire that's near the wind. It changes and it gathers and becomes into wind. So to wind. But some of it that's near the water, it changes and it gathers into water. It's to water. The part of it that's close to the earth, it changes and it gathers and becomes earth. The shinazeh, and this change, ma'at, is a little bit, according to the length of days. Meaning it happens over a long period of time. Now, now, it's not like the whole foundation changes until all of the water becomes wind. Or all the wind becomes fire. Because it's not possible that will be nullified one of these 4 foundations. Rather, some of it will change from fire to wind, and some of the wind will change into fire. Now, so too between one and the other part, you're going to find a change between the 4 of them. And it keeps on going in a circle that a little bit changes into the other one, which then changes into the other one and goes in this circle. Halacha vav. Now, this deviation of change, which change a little bit of the Eish into Ruach and so on, that will depend on the turning of the sphere of the orbit. And now, from its circle, it will connect the 4 of them. And it will be from them, the other forms of people, the nefesh chaya, and the living creatures, v'tzemach, and plants, v'eben, and stone, and matachas, and metal. Now, God gave for every single matter the form that's appropriate for it, by the malach of the 10th sphere, which are the 10th rikia, the 10th sky, which is the lowest of them, which that's the form that's called ishim, which, as we spoke about already in Perek Beis, halacha zayin. Halacha zayin, regarding this idea of matter and form. You'll never see matter without form, or form without matter. Rather, the heart of a person. He could differentiate regarding a body that's found in his consciousness, and he knows that it's connected from matter and form. Now he knows there are bodies, that its matter is formed and connected from the 4 foundations. Now, regarding bodies that their matter is simple, and there are certain ones that its matter is only from one matter, like that by the Galgalim, like we spoke about in the world of the spheres. Now, regarding forms that don't have matter, like malachim, they're not visible to the eye. Rather, in the eyes of the heart, then they're known. Like we know the master of everything of God, without seeing him. So too, you cannot see anything that doesn't have a goylem with a tzura. Those things that have tzura without goylem, we can know of, but we won't see it. Halacha ches, regarding the tzura of Adam, of man. Now, nefesh kol basar, the soul of every flesh, hi tzurase shenas noi hokel. That's the form that God has given him. In other words, that's what differentiates him from the tzemeach, from plants that sprout. Now, that's regarding the soul of every living creature. Now, the additional knowledge which is found in the soul of man, that's the form of man, that's complete in his knowledge. But regarding this form, it says in the Torah, Nasa Adam, let's make man in our form and in our image. In other words, that it should have the form hayadas that knows and it comprehends the wisdom that doesn't have matter. Like malachim, which is the form without matter, until he's compared to them. Now, it doesn't say bitzalmenu regarding a form that's recognizable to the eye. Shihi, that is hapeh, the mouth, the nose, the cheeks, or any other descriptions of the body. Because that's actually, its name is actually appearance. So when we're saying kidmusenu, it refers to something else that's not visible to the eye. It doesn't refer to the soul that you have by every living creature, which that's how it eats and it drinks, because if the body doesn't have the soul, it can't eat and drink or and give birth or margish and feel or mahar and think. No, that's not what we're referring to. We're referring to the knowledge. That's the form of the soul. But it's regarding the form of the soul that the pasuk means when it says in our image and in our form. Now, many times this form is called nefesh, beruach, either soul or spirit. Now, therefore one has to be careful with those names, that a person should not make a mistake with them. Because every single name can be learned out from its topic, from its context. Because sometimes the words nefesh and ruach are broad regarding what's called the nefesh hachayuni, the living soul that is what all living creatures have. So the Rambam is warning us to be careful not to make a mistake, rather to learn it from the context, where sometimes it refers to what many people actually call the neshama, which is the chelik al-kamamau, it's part of the Hashem. That's what we mean over here is the tzuras hanefesh, in the wisdom that a person has. Halacha test. Now, in tzuras hanefesh azois, mechuberes min haYesodis. The form of this soul is not a combination of the foundations. Kedeshit pared lahem, like we said, that has to break down at some point. No. The Ein Mekayach HaNeshama. So here actually, although many use the word neshama to mean neshama, but here actually, neshama actually is a reference to nefesh hachiyuni, which is all living creatures. Like we find kol asher nishmas ruach chaim ba'apav. So it's the breathing that it's not what we're talking about with nefesh. We don't mean the koyach of the neshama asher teitzrichel and neshama that it should need the neshama. Like the way the neshama, which is just a living entity that needs the body, because it's what helps you eat and drink. It's the soul of the body. No, Elameis Hashem. What many call neshama, which is just what the Rambam is calling nefesh. That's from Hashem, and the Shemayim is from heaven. When the mass of a person's clump of his clay, that when it breaks down, which is composed of the four foundations, the neshama, which is this nefesh, that the animation of the body, that's going to be lost because that can only be found with the body. But it needs the body in all its actions. But this form, what many people call the neshama, what Rambam is calling the nefesh, that form is not lost. That doesn't need the soul regarding its actions in the body. Rather, this soul knows and it attains knowledge that's separated from matter. It knows the creator of everything. And it stays forever and forever. This is what Shlomo said in his wisdom, the earth is going to go back, the dust is going to go back to the earth as it was. That's the person's body. And the spirit is going to go back to God that gave it. Concluding these first 4 chapters of the Hilchos Yesodei Torah, all the words that we spoke about up until this point, Kemar midlihem, they're like a little bit from the bucket, meaning these are really very deep words. Now, however, these last 2 prakim are not as deep as what was mentioned in the first 2 prakim, which that's what's called the Ma'aser Merkava, the great Kabbalistic secrets. Now, what we explained in the last 2 prakim, in the 3rd and the 4th parak, that's what's called the actions of creation, which talks about the laws of nature and the different secrets of the creation. This is what the earlier sages have commanded. That also these, not only the Ma'aser Merkava of the first 2 prakim, that also the Ma'aser Bereishis should not be expounded upon in public, rather to an individual person. You let him know these things and you teach it to them. Now, then what's the difference between the acts of the chariot of the divine secrets and that of the actions of creation? Because regarding Ma'aser Merkava, even for one person you don't expound it to him. Rather, if he was a sage, or maybe Medaite understands on his own, you just give him the chapter headings. But the regarding the acts of creation, you could teach it to an individual, even though he doesn't understand it on his own. And you let him know all those things that you can know from these things. Now, why don't you teach it in public? Because not every single person has such a wide ability of breadth of knowledge. To be able to understand and contain the explanation and the commentary of all these things with its clarity. Now, at a time when the person contemplates on these things, he recognizes by all the creations, all the way up from the high, by the malachim, and the world underneath that, which is the spheres, and then Adam, and then man, which is the third and the lowest world. Similarly, he sees the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with all the creations, all the formations, and it increases his love to the omnipresent, and his soul thirsts, and his flesh pines, to love the Creator Baruch Hu, blessed is He. And he's afraid, and he trembles, from his lowliness, v'dalusai, and his paucity, v'kalusai, and his lightness, kishiarchas, when he's going to evaluate himself. In contrast to one of the holy and great bodies of like the galgalim of the spheres. For sure, to one of the holy, the pure forms that are separated from matter, that are not connected to matter at all, which is the malachim. He'll find himself that he's like a vessel full with shame and embarrassment, rik v'chaser, empty and lacking. Now, the inyane arba prakam elu. Now, the idea, the content of these 4 chapters, shabachamish mitzvahs elu, that are in these 5 commandments that we mentioned, which is 1, to know that there's a God; 2, that He's one and there's no one else besides Him; 3, to unify Him; 4, to love Him; and 5, to fear Him. This topic, these topics of these 4 chapters, what the earlier sages called pardes, which literally means to say a beautiful garden, which is a description of the garden of heaven, which is the divine secrets, which are called, for those who know, chen, which refers to, besides the word grace, it means chachmas nister, the hidden wisdom, which were the mekabalim of later generations, which they said the word pardes is also an acronym for pshat, remez, drush, and soid, all the deepest depth of the words of the Torah. Kamish Amr, like they said, arba nichnasu lepardes. 4 went into this garden, and therefore that's the reference to the divine secrets. Now, although that they were great ones of the Jewish people, and they were great sages, not all of them had the power to know to contain and to understand all these things with their great clarity, and they were all harmed except for one that went into the pardes. And says Rambam, I say, it's not appropriate to stroll in this orchard. Only someone that has filled up his belly with bread and flesh, bread and meat. Now, what does it mean that he's already full with bread and meat? That's leida ha'asa b'muta, to know the basics, which is meat and bread, to know what's forbidden, what's permitted, creates b'mishar mitzvahs, and similarly from all other mitzvahs. Now, all these things, what we call Gemara, which is halacha, which is nigla, is davar katan kares chacham. The sages call it a small thing, because the sages said davar gadol. What's a great thing is ma'aser merkava, the acts of the heavenly chariot. But davar katan, a small thing, is habo yistabai b'rava. Other questions that we find throughout Shas of Ababai and Rava, of a pikin, even so, ru'uyim him like dimam. It's appropriate to have them first, because they settled the person's consciousness and his thoughts first. Moreover, it's the great goodness that Hashem has sheared for the settling of this world, so that a person can inherit the life of the world to come. And these are things that everyone can know. God of a cotton, great and small, ish, be'isha, man and a woman, ba'lev rachav, a person with a wide heart, ba'lev katzin, a person with a narrow heart, meaning, therefore, this is something that people should be learning, which are the words of the Gemara, of Abai Rava, because this is something that's for every single person, and it's what takes a person to Olam Haba.